Colditz Castle, Germany, December 1942. The most escape-proof prisoner of war camp in Nazi Germany, a medieval fortress perched on cliffs, selected specifically to hold Allied officers who'd repeatedly escaped from other camps. German high command considered it impregnable, staffed with extra guards, equipped with searchlights and guard towers covering every possible escape route. Flight Lieutenant David Walker sat in the camp library playing poker with 3 other RAF officers, using a worn deck of bicycle playing cards that had arrived months earlier in a Red Cross parcel. The deck was dog-eared, stained, obviously well used, exactly the kind of recreational item prison camp authorities encourage prisoners to have, believing games reduced escape planning by keeping prisoners occupied. But these weren't ordinary playing cards. They were sophisticated escape aids manufactured by MI9 and American intelligence services, specifically designed to be smuggled into German prison camps disguised as innocent recreational equipment. Buried between the 2 paper layers that formed each card was something the German guards had never detected despite countless inspections: silk maps. Walker carefully steamed the ace of spades over a makeshift kettle, heating it just enough to soften the adhesive bonding the card's layers. After several minutes, he gently peeled the card apart, revealing a small section of detailed topographical map printed on ultra-thin silk, showing terrain, roads, railways, and borders between Germany and neutral Switzerland, precisely corresponding to the area surrounding Colditz. Over the past 3 months, Walker and his fellow conspirators had systematically destroyed or hidden 9 decks of cards, extracting the map sections from specific cards in each deck. When assembled like a jigsaw puzzle, the 52 pieces created a complete detailed map covering hundreds of square kilometers, everything needed to navigate from Colditz to the Swiss border 200 kilometers away. The cards had passed through German inspection repeatedly. Guards had handled them, played with them themselves during off-duty hours, examined them during routine searches. But they'd never discovered the maps, because they'd never imagined that playing cards, cheap, flimsy, obviously mass-produced entertainment items, could conceal sophisticated intelligence materials. Walker's escape attempt ultimately failed due to unrelated circumstances, betrayal by an informer rather than navigational problems. But the maps themselves were never discovered. They remained hidden in the camp, used by subsequent escape attempts, still undetected when Allied forces liberated Colditz in 1945. This is the story of the most deceptive playing cards ever created, and how paper, ink, and silk became weapons that helped Allied prisoners fight their way toward freedom. Let's go back to 1940. MI9, the covert British organization dedicated to helping prisoners escape, faced a critical challenge: how to get maps to prisoners in German camps. Successful escapes required detailed, accurate maps showing terrain, roads, railways, borders, and safe houses. Without maps, escapees wandered blindly, usually recaptured within days. Conventional paper maps were immediately confiscated by German guards during capture processing and routine searches. Prisoners caught with maps faced severe punishment: solitary confinement, transfer to higher security camps, sometimes execution as suspected spies. German security was thorough and paranoid about maps, understanding their critical importance to escape attempts. Christopher Clayton Hutton, MI9's escape equipment designer, needed a method to smuggle maps into camps that would defeat German inspection and provide maps in a format prisoners could actually use. The solution required multiple innovations: a concealment method Germans wouldn't detect, a material durable enough to survive handling and concealment, and a delivery mechanism that appeared innocent. Hutton's breakthrough came from recognizing that German guards distinguished between contraband and innocent items. Maps were contraband, no legitimate reason for prisoners to have them. But playing cards were innocent recreation. Germans actually encouraged prisoners to have games and entertainment, believing they reduced escape motivation by keeping prisoners occupied. The playing card became the perfect concealment vehicle. Every prison camp allowed playing cards. Red Cross parcels routinely included them. Prisoners played cards daily without arousing suspicion. Guards handled card decks during inspections, finding nothing unusual. The familiarity and ubiquity of playing cards created a psychological blind spot. Guards saw what they expected to see and never questioned the card's authenticity. But creating playing cards that concealed maps while remaining functional as cards required sophisticated manufacturing techniques that challenged 1940s production capabilities. The cards had to look, feel, and perform identically to genuine playing cards. They had to survive rough handling, humidity, and the curious inspection of both prisoners and guards. And most critically, they had to be separable by prisoners who knew the secret without being accidentally separated through normal use. Creating map-concealing playing cards required innovations in materials, manufacturing processes, and design that pushed the boundaries of paper production technology. The final product was a masterpiece of covert engineering that looked completely ordinary while hiding sophisticated intelligence materials. The map material was silk, specifically extremely thin silk fabric printed with detailed topographical information. Silk offered multiple advantages over paper. It was incredibly thin, thinner than tissue paper, allowing it to be sandwiched between playing card layers without creating noticeable thickness. It was durable despite its thinness, resistant to tearing even when wet. It was silent when handled, unlike paper maps that crinkled and rustled. And crucially, silk didn't deteriorate in humid conditions that would destroy paper maps. The printing process required specialized techniques. Standard printing methods couldn't achieve the detail density needed on silk's thin, smooth surface. MI9 collaborated with British textile printers who developed techniques for printing fine patterns on silk for the fashion industry. These craftsmen adapted their methods to create maps with incredible detail: roads, railways, terrain contours, elevation markings, town names, forest boundaries, water features, all printed clearly enough to read at tiny scales. The map sections were strategically divided across 52 cards, each card containing one piece of a larger map puzzle. The division wasn't arbitrary. Specific cards contained specific sections, with a coding system that allowed prisoners to know which cards held which map sections. Typically, face cards and aces contained border regions and key navigation landmarks, while number cards filled in interior sections. The playing card construction was a three-layer sandwich. The bottom layer was standard playing card paper stock, printed with the card back design, typically the familiar bicycle playing card pattern, chosen because it was internationally recognized and available, making the cards appear authentic. The middle layer was the silk map section, cut precisely to fit within the card's dimensions with tiny margin for error. The top layer was the card face, the number, suit, and design that identified the card's value. The adhesive bonding these layers was carefully formulated. It had to be strong enough to keep layers together during normal handling, shuffling, dealing, playing, but weak enough to be separated by prisoners using simple heat and moisture. MI9 chemists developed a specialized adhesive that softened at relatively low temperatures achievable with steam from boiling water, allowing separation without destroying the card or damaging the silk map. The manufacturing process was labor-intensive despite appearing simple. Each card was assembled by hand, placing the bottom layer, carefully positioning the silk section, applying adhesive precisely to avoid excess that would create thickness variations, placing the top layer, and pressing the sandwich under controlled temperature and pressure to bond the layers uniformly. Quality control was rigorous. Every card was inspected to ensure uniform thickness. Variations would indicate tampering and alert guards during inspection. The cards were flexed and shuffled repeatedly to verify the layers remained bonded during normal use. Sample cards were steamed to ensure the adhesive released properly when prisoners attempted separation. Cards failing any test were rejected and destroyed. The finished decks were packaged in standard card boxes, sealed with authentic-looking cellophane wrapping. Nothing about the packaging suggested anything unusual. The cards looked, felt, and performed like ordinary playing cards because they essentially were ordinary cards, just with an extraordinary secret hidden inside. Production occurred at several covert facilities in Britain and later in the United States after American intelligence services joined the program. British facilities focused on European maps, Germany, France, Poland, areas where British prisoners predominated. American facilities produced cards with maps of Asian theaters, Burma, Thailand, Pacific Islands, for use by American airmen shot down in those regions. The scale of production was substantial. Tens of thousands of decks were manufactured throughout the war, distributed through Red Cross parcels, covert supply channels, and even pre-positioned in escape kits given to aircrew before missions. Not every deck contained maps. Some were genuine decks included to provide actual playing cards, but the distribution ensured that most prison camps received multiple map card decks. Getting map cards to prisoners required elaborate covert distribution networks and careful communication to ensure prisoners knew which decks contained maps and how to extract them. MI9 couldn't simply mail cards to prison camps with instructions. Germans intercepted and read all prisoner mail. The primary distribution method used Red Cross parcels, packages of food, clothing, and recreational items that international convention required Germany to allow prisoners to receive. MI9 worked with Red Cross organizations to include map card decks in parcels, carefully tracking which parcels went to which camps to ensure coverage without raising suspicion by sending too many card decks to a single location. The cards were packaged identically to commercial decks, with one subtle difference: a specific marking on the box or cellophane wrapper that indicated the deck contained maps. The marking was typically a small dot, a slightly misaligned label, or a specific color variation that appeared accidental but conveyed information to prisoners who'd been briefed before capture. Aircrew received training on escape aids before operational missions. Intelligence briefings included information about map cards, what they looked like, how to identify them, how to extract the maps, and which card contained which map section. Not every airman received this training. The information was classified and shared only with personnel likely to be shot down over enemy territory. The communication system had backup methods. Senior Allied officers in prison camps, usually colonels or group captains who coordinated escape activities, received coded letters through routine mail. These letters, written in innocent-sounding language about family matters or camp life, contained hidden messages using prearranged codes. Prison camp resistance networks, organized groups of prisoners dedicated to escape planning, developed expertise in identifying and using map cards. Experienced prisoners who'd successfully identified and used map cards taught new arrivals how to recognize them. This knowledge spread through whisper networks, passed carefully to trusted individuals to prevent German informers from learning about the cards. Once prisoners identified a map card deck, extraction required careful technique. The most common method used steam from boiling water. Prisoners would heat water using improvised stoves made from tin cans and contraband fuel, generate steam, and carefully expose individual cards to the moisture and heat. After several minutes, the adhesive softened enough to gently peel the card layers apart. The process required patience and delicate touch. Rushing or using excessive heat damaged the silk maps or tore the card layers. Experienced prisoners developed techniques through trial and error, sometimes sacrificing cards from genuine decks to practice the separation method before attempting it on precious map cards. After extraction, the silk map sections were carefully hidden, sewn into clothing seams, concealed in hollowed-out book spines, rolled into tiny cylinders, and hidden in body cavities. Some prisoners memorized map sections and destroyed the silk to eliminate physical evidence. The empty card shells, top and bottom layers without the silk middle, were usually destroyed or hidden separately to prevent Germans from discovering that cards had been tampered with. Map cards contributed to numerous successful escapes throughout World War II, though quantifying their exact impact is challenging because escaped prisoners rarely revealed their specific tools and techniques to protect future escapees. However, declassified records and post-war testimonies document significant contributions. The wooden horse escape from Stalag Luft 3 in October 1943 utilized maps extracted from playing cards. Eric Williams and Michael Kodner, who successfully reached Sweden, navigating using silk maps they'd assembled from multiple card decks over several months. Williams' post-war book about the escape mentions maps from an unusual source, without elaborating, adhering to security restrictions that remained in place for decades. Dutch Paris Escape Line, a resistance network that helped Allied evaders reach Spain from occupied Europe, received map cards through MI9 channels and used them to guide Allied airmen through multiple countries. Resistance guides memorized map sections and led evaders along routes planned using the detailed topographical information the silk maps provided. Squadron leader Roger Bushell, mastermind of the Great Escape in March 1944, ensured many of the 76 escapees carried map sections extracted from playing cards. The maps helped several escapees reach significant distances before recapture. Some traveled hundreds of kilometers, reaching borders or major cities before German security forces caught them. Flight Lieutenant Aidan Crawley escaped from a prison camp in Italy in 1943 and traveled nearly 500 kilometers using maps extracted from playing cards, eventually reaching Allied lines after Italy's surrender. His navigation through mountainous terrain would have been impossible without detailed topographical maps showing elevation, trails, and safe passage routes. Royal Navy personnel captured after ship sinkings used map cards when imprisoned in German naval camps. Prisoners who never successfully escaped still benefited from map cards. The detailed geographical knowledge provided by the maps helped prisoners understand their location, plan potential escape routes, and maintain hope that escape was possible with proper preparation. The psychological value of having maps, of knowing that home wasn't an unknowable distance away, but a specific direction and measurable kilometers, sustained morale during long imprisonments. The Germans occasionally discovered map cards through various means: informers, accidental damage revealing the silk interior, or prisoners who broke under interrogation and revealed the card's existence. However, these discoveries never led Germans to understand the full scope of the program. They knew map cards existed, but couldn't identify them reliably or prevent their distribution through Red Cross channels. German security forces were aware that prisoners received covert escape materials through Red Cross parcels and other channels, but they struggled to interdict map cards effectively. The card's perfect mimicry of authentic playing cards defeated most inspection methods. Routine inspections of incoming parcels included examining playing cards, but guards typically just rifled through decks to verify they contained 52 cards and no obvious contraband. The map cards passed these inspections because they were functionally complete decks that looked and felt normal. Guards didn't systematically peel apart cards to check for hidden materials. Such inspection would be impossibly time-consuming given the volume of parcels and items prisoners received. Some camps implemented policies of opening and examining all sealed packages before delivery to prisoners. This led to map card decks being opened and handled by German guards, but the cards still appeared innocent. Guards played with the cards themselves, shuffled them, even took decks for personal use, never suspecting they were handling sophisticated intelligence materials. German security eventually learned about map cards through prisoner interrogations and discoveries when prisoners were caught attempting escapes with silk maps. Warnings were issued to camp commandants about playing cards containing maps, but the warnings lacked specificity about identification methods. How could guards distinguish map cards from genuine cards when they appeared identical? Some camps attempted to ban playing cards entirely, confiscating all decks from prisoners. This policy was unpopular with both prisoners and guards. The entertainment value of cards reduced tensions and occupied prisoners' time. Camps that banned cards saw increased escape attempts, suggesting that keeping prisoners entertained was actually valuable for security. Most camps quickly rescinded card bans and resumed allowing them. Attempted countermeasures included soaking cards in water to see if layers separated, But genuine cards also delaminated when soaked, creating false positives. Additionally, this destroyed cards regardless of whether they contained maps, requiring constant replacement. X-ray examination of suspicious packages. But silk maps were too thin to create distinct X-ray shadows different from normal card materials. The images were ambiguous and couldn't definitively identify map cards, providing prisoners with German-approved cards from known sources. But prisoners simply preferred Red Cross cards when available, and Germans couldn't force prisoners to use only approved decks without violating Red Cross conventions. The fundamental problem was that map cards were functionally identical to genuine cards in every observable way. The only certain identification required destructive testing, peeling apart every card in every deck, which was impractical given the volume of cards in typical camps and the labor required. German security focused resources on preventing escape attempts rather than finding every possible escape tool. They reasoned that stopping escapes at wire perimeters or recapturing escapees in the countryside was more effective than searching exhaustively for hidden materials that prisoners would inevitably receive through various channels. After 1945, map cards transitioned from active military use to historical artifacts and inspirations from modern survival equipment. The techniques developed for concealing maps influenced subsequent designs for concealable information storage. Intelligence agencies continued developing concealed map technologies during the Cold War, though specific details remained classified. The principle of hiding information within innocent-appearing objects remained foundational to covert operations equipment. Modern versions use different materials and concealment methods, but follow the same conceptual approach MI9 pioneered. Commercial survival equipment manufacturers produce escape and evasion cards for military personnel, incorporating maps and survival information on durable materials concealed in various everyday items. These modern products acknowledge direct inspiration from World War II map cards. Museums display map cards as examples of MI9 ingenuity and the elaborate measures taken to support Allied prisoners. The Imperial War Museum in London has an extensive collection, including intact map cards that visitors can examine. Interpretive displays explain the manufacturing process and the card's role in escape attempts. Collectors prize original map cards highly. Surviving examples are rare because most were either used during escapes and destroyed, confiscated by Germans, or lost during post-war disposal of classified materials. Authenticated examples command significant prices at military memorabilia auctions. Veterans who used map cards during escapes sometimes kept the extracted silk maps as mementos after the war, though many destroyed them immediately upon reaching Allied lines to eliminate evidence in case of recapture. The few preserved maps provide tangible connections to individual escape stories. Specific silk sections can sometimes be matched to documented escape attempts through geographical details. The story of map cards entered popular culture through escape literature. Books by former prisoners describing their experiences often mentioned special playing cards or maps from an unusual source, though detailed descriptions remained classified for decades. Modern documentaries and historical programs feature the cards prominently when discussing prisoner escape technology. Playing cards seem like the least likely weapons in a military arsenal. They're entertainment, recreation, something to pass time during imprisonment's endless boredom. German guards encouraged prisoners to play cards, believing games reduced escape motivation. They were wrong. The map cards were deceptive at every level. They deceived German inspectors who examined them without recognizing their true nature. They deceived guards who handled them, shuffled them, even played with them during off-duty hours. They deceived commandants who approved their distribution, believing cards were harmless recreation. The deception was perfect because the cards were simultaneously genuine, they functioned as playing cards, and covert weapons that gave prisoners the means to escape. MI9's genius lay in recognizing that the best concealment isn't invisibility. It's being so ordinary, so expected, so mundane that no one questions your presence. Playing cards belonged in prison camps. Their presence required no justification or explanation. They were the perfect hiding place precisely because they were the most obvious, the most visible, the most handled items prisoners possessed. For prisoners planning escapes, the cards were more than navigation tools. They were symbols that someone outside the wire was thinking about them, working to help them, refusing to abandon them to captivity. Every deck that arrived meant British intelligence officers had designed it, factory workers had manufactured it, Red Cross personnel had shipped it, all to give imprisoned men the tools they needed to fight their way home. The silk maps hidden between card layers represented something profound. That imprisonment wasn't permanent, that freedom was a measurable distance away, that escape was possible with proper planning and tools. The maps transformed imprisonment from an indefinite condition into a problem with a potential solution. You are here, freedom is there, here's the route between them. So why did these deceptive British playing cards hide escape maps from Nazi guards? Because MI9 understood that guards see what they expect to see. Because silk could be printed with incredible detail and hidden between paper layers. Because playing cards were so innocent that their very innocence made them invisible. The Germans searched constantly for hidden escape tools. They found some, but they never found most of the map cards. They played poker with them, dealt blackjack with them, passed them through countless inspections without ever imagining that the ace of spades in their hands contained detailed topographical maps of German terrain. That's the ultimate victory in deception warfare. Not hiding your weapon somewhere distant, but putting it directly in the enemy's hands while they remain oblivious. The German guards who shuffled those cards, who examined them during inspections, who used them for their own entertainment, they were holding Allied intelligence materials, handling evidence of British support for prisoners, touching the tools that would help men escape from their custody. And they never knew. That's genius. That's deception perfected. That's warfare fought not with bullets, but with silk, paper, and the certainty that people see what they expect and miss what they don't imagine possible. Sometimes the deadliest weapon is the one that looks like a game. And sometimes the most important intelligence fit between two pieces of paper, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself and guide a desperate man toward freedom. From playing cards hiding maps, to button compasses, to dummy parachutists, World War II weapons reveals how British intelligence turned everyday objects into escape tools. Subscribe now for more incredible stories of ingenuity that changed history one clever deception at a time. From playing cards hiding maps, button compasses, to dummy parachutists, World War II weapons reveals how British intelligence turned everyday objects into escape tools. Subscribe now for more incredible stories of ingenuity that changed history one clever deception at a time.